Welcome everybody to today's webinar. My name is Martin Karlovic. I'm the CEO and co-owner of NETRONIC Software here in Aachen, Germany. And today I talk about the visual scheduling essentials, finite capacity scheduling. So this is the second webinar that I do on in the series of visual scheduling essentials. Where I will basically take a deep dive into some of the more fundamental concepts behind our visual scheduling extensions for Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central. Before I start, just a couple of words from my side regarding the current situation and crisis that we are all in, and I hope that all of you, your families and your co-workers are safe and stay safe and healthy. So far, we are NETRONIC. We are all employees are good. All their families are good. So we have no known cases here. Thanks God in our little NETRONIC universe, so to say. We are in our home office since last week, Monday, and it seems to work well organized, and we're actually getting a lot of stuff done. And when we left when we kind of sent really everybody, literally every employee to the home office, I actually shared with my management colleagues the kind of thought that in these times of crisis, we all win some unexpected time and we all get some free time that we didn't plan to have. And I asked everybody from the management team just to pick one of those things that we always wanted to do and never did, and where we always could hide behind the argument, not enough time. And I said, no, that this argument is gone. Let all of us get out of our own management comfort zones and do something very hands-on that we always wanted to do for the sake of our business, for the sake of our partners, and for the sake of our customers, but also for the sake of our own business fun. But let's do something that makes us as NETRONIC stronger and gives us some additional insight, power, strength, whatever. And so actually me leaving the comfort zone is I started to do something that I call the Business Central Manufacturing Show. So since a couple of days, I'm an active podcaster. This is something that I wanted to do for quite some while because I personally love hearing podcasts. I have very few, but those are really on my schedule. So when they come out, I download them to my app and I listen to them. For example, when I'm in the car or when I'm relaxing. So I have a couple of few podcasts that I listen to, and I always found this quite valuable and insightful. And I had this thought for a very long while. And so far, I was always hiding behind the argument, not time enough. And so now this argument is gone. I kicked this off. There's a website, netronic.com, Business Central Manufacturing Show, and the way, and we can have a very quick look before we dive into the details, but this, please just allow me this bit of self-marketing here. And if I'm able to operate my PC in a proper way. So let's do it like this. We'll go here and then go to our homepage, and there it should be somewhere. This is the Business Central Manufacturing Podcast, and actually what I do is this is the first one where I just explained the idea, which I did now, and here I needed 10 minutes to do it. Now I needed one or two, and then starting this week, Monday, I'm actually sitting down on meeting Business Central manufacturing experts. So this week I met Pike Beck Andersen from Denmark, who has written the book on Business Central manufacturing, and I spoke with him 16 minutes about his view on Business Central manufacturing, his insights, and this was quite a lot of fun and it's insightful. The podcast is now on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and in some of the other channels. So if you're interested in Business Central and manufacturing, and I guess you are because this webinar is about finite capacity scheduling, which is basically a manufacturing topic, then just tune into this podcast, listen to it, and if you like it, give it a good rating on your preferred platform, subscribe to it, and if you not like it, then just let me know what I can improve. And so from now on, I will do an interview once a week, so that we have a new episode coming every Monday. And with this, let's go to what I initially wanted to do in this webinar and what was announced to you guys, and this is talking about visual scheduling essentials. This is a new webinar series that I kicked off a couple of weeks ago. There we spoke about filtering, filter concepts, and now we speak about finite capacity scheduling. So the idea of these webinars is really to take a deeper dive into some of the core concepts, core ideas, core principles that we have behind our products. And by the way, and I'm sorry for that, my excitement about the podcast, let me forget to mention some housekeeping stuff. So of course you are all on mute, and this is not because I don't want to talk to you, but this is just because we don't want to get disturbed from the background noises that now exist more than before with many people in the home office. So if you have a question, then use the GoToWebinar chat pane. I will answer the questions whenever I see them. So when I'm on PowerPoint, I most of the time see them immediately and answer them immediately. But if I'm doing a demo, sometimes I don't see this pop-up icon that tells me that there's a question. Then please bear with me, give me a second and that I finish my demo, and then afterwards we look at this. And so today we look at some finite capacity scheduling fundamentals and really talk about the idea of finite capacity scheduling and what finite capacity scheduling actually means. Before we look at the Visual Advanced Production Scheduler, our more advanced production scheduling product that as of last week Friday is available on AppSource as well. And we look at how we apply these finite capacity principles to the VAPs and how we make you or your user making use of finite capacity scheduling capabilities. And then to conclude the webinar in 55 minutes, I will also share some information on what we are working on right now with the VAPs. So right now we are working full steam. We are product-based, product-driven company. So we typically have and traditionally have less service work to do and a lot of product work. And so we right now have the full product and engineering team working full steam. So we are looking actually at bringing out a new version of the VPS and VJS this week, and then put some horsepower behind the VAPS to have a new version in May. And I will talk about what's in there. So now let's look into some finite capacity scheduling fundamentals. Sorry for this. Not sure what happened there. And let's do first things first. So I'm not sure if you know it, but everybody who has worked with Business Central Manufacturing to some degree knows it, that Business Central Manufacturing is not good at scheduling with finite capacities. There is a function in the software that is called capacity constrained resources. And to be fair, it produces results that are understandable if you take the time to dig into the Navision or the Business Central code, and if you take the time to dig into how this code works and how this function works. So there is some thinking behind the capacity constrained resources, and I would not say that this is wrong, but our observation is that this is not the way of how your customers, or if you're a user of Business Central or user of Navision, of how you think. So the way of how capacity constrained resources in Business Central or in NAV is implemented is working, it's consistent, and it provides understandable and explainable results, but it does not match the expectation of 95% of the people that I spoke to when it comes what customers, what users, what manufacturers typically have in mind when they talk about finite capacity scheduling. And so as this webinar is meant to drill down into what we think how finite capacity scheduling should work, This webinar does not speak about the standard Dynamics 365 Business Central version, because there is a way of how Business Central looks at finite capacity scheduling, and we have a different way looking at finite capacity scheduling. And this way that we look at is what we feel resonates more with the need of the customer. So this webinar speaks about finite capacity scheduling provided by our product called Visual Advanced Production Scheduler, VAPS. And so we talk today about our view on this, my view on this, NETRONIC's view on this, but we don't talk about Business Central's view on this, and we also don't talk about other systems' views on this, but this is kind of our view, our concept, our thinking, and we feel that if you understand our thinking, then you can make a good assessment if you like or not the thinking, and then you can make a good assessment if this product is a fit for your client or not, because this is in the end what working together is all about, is delivering and providing and building solutions that provide value to customers, and where we have a fit between us as the vendor of the products and the users and the customers of the product. So finite capacity scheduling, and I put this very simply here. Finite capacity scheduling to us means that we schedule with limited capacities, and for the time being, our default assumption in the VAPS is that the capacity of a machine center is 1. So we look at finite capacities on machine center level with the VAPS. We don't look at it right now on the work center level. This may be something to come later, but right now we with the VAPS we schedule on machine center level, and we work on the assumption that the machine center has a capacity of 1, which in other words means that any machine can just work on one operation at a given point of time. So no overlaps on machines like you observe in standard Business Central. So the finite capacity scheduling as we build it makes sure that you never overload a machine center. There's always only one operation at a machine center, and the VAPS makes sure that this happens always, and the VAPS runs on a finite capacity scheduler. So we build actually additional software that comes with the extension that takes care for the scheduling, so that whenever you do something in the visual planning board, we do a calculation of how the schedule should look like based on the rules of the finite capacity scheduling, and then we pass these results to the planning board again, and then from there you can publish it into Business Central. And this is different than what we do in the VPS, because in the VPS, when you make drag and drop changes, we kind of drag a bar, we drop it, and then we ask Business Central, hey, Business Central, please tell me where this should be. And then Business Central applies the Business Central logic, and then it tells us, okay, this interaction should result into this bar being here, and then we show it here. Whereas with the VAPS, we do changes in the schedule, and every change triggers a scheduling run of our finite capacity scheduler, and then our scheduler, so our code, tells us how the plan should look like. And this is really a big difference. And let me go now into the concept of finite capacity scheduling really step by step. So I have a very, very easy example. I have one machine, and this machine has an operation A and an operation B. And now operation A, and operation A was meant to start here, finish here, and afterward operation B should start. And so now, for whatever reason, we get a new start date for operation A. So this should be a new start date for operation A. This could be because material arrives later, or the machine is down before that point of time, or whatever reason. And so now, what is the effect of this? Well, there actually could be two effects when we say we cannot overload the machine. So when we say we cannot overload the machine, this is not finite capacity scheduling. So what will not happen is that this operation A is moved to its new start date, like here, and then it runs until here, and operation B is left where it was before. So, and I see there's a question coming. There is somebody who reports sound issues. So can you quickly type, a few of you guys can type in if this is a individual issue or if this is for all of you. So can you hear me, guys? Okay, thanks. I get a lot of messages that thanks. I got it. Yeah, very clear. Yes, you can hear you. You can hear me. You can hear me. Cool. So it seems that I got feedback from 30 people that they all can hear me. So Rajmi, who asked the question, it seems that it's you. So let me quickly send him a message. It's fine for the others. Please restart. And then I continue, but let me just give him this information. Boom. Okay, thanks. So this will not happen. This is something that a finite capacity scheduler does not allow. Do not go for overloads. And so let's look at the example again. What can happen instead? And there are two scenarios. So same case, two operations lined up one after each other on one machine. New start date for the first operation. So the first thing that can happen is that the system would recognize that the time spent from the new start of operation 1 to the start of the already planned operation B is not sufficient, and that for some reason operation B should be where it was, so should not get moved, and then it means operation A can only start here. So this is not enough time to get this long blue thing done. We don't want to move operation B at all, and we cannot move it for whatever reason. Then this means with this new impulse, with this new information, operation A can only start at earliest from here. It will actually get moved to here. Or what we also can say is, no, I actually like the sequence of my machine, and this was on purpose that I want to do the blue one first before I do the orange. Then you can move out the first operation, but this also moves out the second operation. So you move out the blue one, and it starts immediately when it can start, and this will also move out the other operation on this machine. So we basically move out the entire queue of operations on the machine. Let's make this, and with the VAPs is the sorry for this, just need to drink a bit, just talking too much when sitting at home. Okay, let's go. So with the VAPs, the planner can and must make this decision. So the decision if you want to have this scenario or this scenario is nothing that a machine does for you, but you as the planner or the person at your customer who are responsible for planning, they get the option to make this kind of call efficiently with the VAPs. So let's make this a little bit more complicated. So now again, we have two machines, machine 1, machine 2, and we have three different production orders. We have the blue production order, the orange production order, and the green production order, with the blue production order having two operations, the orange one having one operation, two operations, and the green one only have one operation. And you see there's some dependency. So I run operation 1 first on machine 1. When I'm done with it, I can start operation 1 of the orange one on that machine. I run operation 2 on machine 2 as soon as this is finished, and then operation 2 of the orange one and operation 1 of the orange one, operation 2 of the blue one have the same length. So when I'm done here, I can do operation 2 and then operation 1 of the green one. So now let's assume the same case, and we know already there are no overlaps, so we get a new start date for operation 1. And so again, there can be two scenarios. The one scenario is, again, we say, hey, this time does not allow for operation 1 of the blue one to start here, but I want to leave the rest of my schedule unchanged. So I move operation 1 to the point of time where I can run this at earliest, which is at the end of operation 1 on machine 1. And then once this is done, actually my second operation of the blue one has to wait a bit before on machine 2, operation 2 of the orange one and operation 1 of the green one are finished. Because we don't disturb the schedule here, but we say, okay, we cannot make this here anymore, so let's move it to here. But this has not only an impact on operation 1, but this has also an impact on the time gap between operation 1 and operation 2 of the blue one. The other option, same scenario, is that we want to keep the queue on machine 1. So we want to have the blue first and then the orange. So we move this out. This moves out everything else. So if I move operation 1 of the blue one to the right to now start as soon as it can start, it moves out the operation 2 on the machine 2, as you can see. It moves out the operation 1 here. It moves out the operation 2, and it moves out the green one. So now this one is a situation where we left the schedule rather stable. This is a situation where we changed a lot by just making this change. Getting a question. Let me now scroll down. Can operation 1 orange begin on new start? Yeah, this in theory, of course, is possible. So this is the next. Sorry, now I need to get rid of the question. So this is also a possibility that in now my screen is frozen. That in the first scenario that we also could move operation 1 to here if material would be available, whatever. This is something I will also talk about later when we talk about the roadmap. So now, so these are the two options that we had. This is the next one, and so let's quickly recap this. These are the principles of finite capacity scheduling. So we don't allow machine overloads. If you make a change in the schedule, we do an automatic recalculation of the entire schedule, applying the rules that I just showed you. And with each recalculation, we apply this finite capacity scheduling principle. And of course, this is true for any type of routing. So independent if you have a serial or a parallel routing, it works in both cases. So let's make it just a little bit more transparent, not complex, and let's introduce these 3 lines. And these 3 lines, so it's the same case, these 3 lines represent due dates. So this is the due date of the blue production order, this is the due date of the orange production order, this is the due date of the green production order. So in the first case, if I would say, okay, I want to keep my schedule unchanged, if I would let the blue one start here and not move the rest, we see that now we are late with production order 1 with the blue production order. In the second case, we see that the blue one still it starts later and it finishes later as initially planned, but still in time. The orange one starts later, but there was some buffer before between the end of it and the end date, but now it still finishes in time. But because the blue and the orange move, the green one get moved out and turns late. And actually, this is something that you as the planner will have to decide in this case. If there is no option to move everything to the left, so if for some reason operation 1 only can start here because it has a release date here or whatever, if it cannot move to the left, this is the decision that you need to make. And now you can say, okay, but the degree of lateness is less here, so maybe I can get this going by doing some overtime here to kind of make the green one finish in time or whatever. But this is something that where we help you with seeing what's happening, but then you as a planner or the planner at your customer needs to make this decision. So this is how basically the finite capacity scheduler that we have works. Our finite capacity scheduling as part of the VAPs takes into account dependencies between operations of one production order or of it takes into account dependencies between production orders. So if you make reservations from one production order to another, and I did a webinar on this, I think 2 weeks ago. So if you have dependencies between operations, between production orders made from reservations, either independent production orders or as part of the make to order functionality within one production order, then we take this into account, and we take into account that the machine center capacity is one, independent of what you set in Business Central. So even if you set the Business Central machine center capacity to 3, we will ignore this information, and in the VAPs we will calculate with, for the time being, with a machine center's capacity of 1. And then more or less the rest is up to the planner. So the planner remains in the driver's seat, but the planner also needs to make the tough decision. We don't want the system to make any kind of tough decision, because in the end, what we are convinced about, there are so many gray zones and gray areas that in the end, it is hard to impossible to model them all out in an algorithmic system. So we want a person, we want a planner, we want a person working with the software to have the responsibility to make the decision. And with this, let's have a very quick look on some of the more simpler stuff in the VAPs. And I'm still on version 14, so I told my people today that maybe with the next webinar I want to be on 16, that I don't need these refreshes anymore. But now let's make this very simple here. Let's go to the VAPs, and I skip all the explanation why I go through simulations and what this means. This has been done in recent webinars, and I think in a week or in 2 weeks from today, no, in 2 weeks from today, because initially next week I had planned to be on vacation. So in 2 weeks from today, I do another webinar where I talk about what makes the Visual Advanced Production Scheduler advanced, and then I will briefly talk about the finite capacity scheduling again for those who cannot join us today, but I will in depth talk about why we have something that is called simulations and what EMAT allocations is. So I will talk about a little bit more about the other instruments and principles of the VAPs. But now let's just, for the time being, accept that in the VAPs we have simulations, so that we don't schedule on the live production data, and that once we have run a simulation, we can look at the data visually. And here you see it's an example that is rather simple. We have a blue production order, a green production order, and a black production order, and maybe just focus now. And this is something you can do, set focus on the machines that uses the green and the black ones. So you see this is the case. I have the green production order here, and then followed by the black. So now if for whatever reason the green one is moved, then we don't do the overlap, but the black one is moved, and with this also the subsequent black ones are moved. And if I move it further, then now we kick it in a way that now it still finishes that day. If I would move it further, then we finish it also next day. And what you also see, and just observe this, by doing this, what actually can happen is that on subsequent machines, due to the finite capacity scheduling and due to the finite capacity scheduling boiling down to all impacted machines, and this is the most simple examples, you can get some gaps. So when we will talk about the roadmap, we will also talk about these gaps again, but just keep in mind that they exist. So there is actually one thing that we also implemented, and this is that there may be the case that I, for whatever reason, don't want this black production order, which is here on my drilling machine 1. I don't want this operation to get moved by whatever kind of mechanism. So then what I can do is I can say, I want to pin this and I want to block the capacity. So now you see this lock. Now this black one is locked. This means if I move this green one here, then this green one cannot be moved anymore because it now hits, it hits a wall in terms of the black production order that I pinned, that I locked. So now let me do this. And now you see two things happened. This one jumped after the end of this, and this one here on the machine got moved, but I got the indication, oh, hey, now I have a conflict because the start of this is after the end of this. So now as this is moved, this one did not get moved because it was locked, it was pinned, and so now this one got moved after it. So now I need to sort it out, and maybe now I say, okay, this one actually I move it to the left, and then which means those two change the position. So you have the capability actually to tell an operation, hey, you get taken out of the finite capacity scheduling by pinning it. And we have two ways to pin it. So let me unpin it and do it vice versa. We also have the capability to actually pin it and say, hey, you are pinned. I want you to be there, but I don't want you to use the capacity. So then it gets this gray lock. This means now it does not use capacity. So now, for example, let me move this black one again so that the black successor gets moved. And then this is the moment in time where we actually allow an overlap to happen, because now this one does not consume capacity. And there are use cases out there. For example, if this would not be a drilling machine, but for example, it would be an oven. And if in this oven you could put 3 production orders at the same point of time and let them start at the same point of time, then you can just kind of arrange them like this and say, okay, now this is also pinned with capacity, without capacity blocked, so without capacity. So now I have 2 of those, and then I maybe can take this and drop it also there, and then they won't get moved by the finite capacity scheduling engine. So you have 2 ways of telling an operation that it should get taken out of this. So you can pin it with capacity blocked or without capacity used. And I know that this is quite powerful, and to some users this is very appealing. But I just want to say, as a word of caution, when you use the VAPs or when you discuss using the VAPs with your customers, just make them aware of the fact that they should use the pinning functionality as an exception, as a real exception where they really need to have something sitting where it is, but don't use the pinning as kind of the default, because the more you pin, the more this instrument turns into a pure manual scheduler. And if in an unrealistic scenario you have everything pinned, then actually you will have paid for the VAPs, but you use the VPS, right? Because the VPS, our visual production scheduler, is the pure manual product, and it does not come with the power of finite capacity scheduling. But if you pin everything, then everything is manual, and you don't make use of the finite capacity scheduling engine. And so there is the possibility to take something out of the capacity of the finite capacity scheduling run, but my recommendation is make use of this wisely and make use of this for the exceptional cases and not for the standard cases. Because if you see a plan where everything is pinned, then okay, boom, you're a very good VPS customer. This just as a word of caution. With this, let me quickly go back to the slides, and I see that there is at least one more question, maybe more. Let me quickly check. One more. Do you take into account the operation type is serial or parallel, so the planner will plan operations parallel? Yes, we take this into account. So I just showed this on serial on operations that came into a production order with a serial routing, but if you set the routing to parallel and have parallel operation, it works exactly the same. So I don't have an example right now, but we built this, we tested this, and this works. It also takes into account if you work with family orders. So the VAPS also treats family orders in an appropriate way. So this is also kind of taken care of. I hope this answers the question. So now let's go into the second part of the webinar and let's next question. Sorry. Okay. So and the question, there was no question, there was just the person who asked the question said thank you, so welcome. And let me continue with this. On the next section of the webinar is how the finite capacity scheduling principle that we just looked at is applied to the VAPS. And here we kind of, when we build the product, we looked at a couple of core principles. So first, we use the finite capacity scheduling as the basis for every scheduling that we do. And when you build a scheduling product, you, in the very beginning, I think, to my understanding, you need to make a fundamental decision about the direction that this product should take. And we know that there are products out there, the advanced planning and scheduling systems, that are heavily built on algorithms, on really powerful, on smart algorithms where you can configure the system, and then you have this magic button that you press, and then this magic button kind of magically builds a schedule for you. This is not what the VAPS does, and this is not how we build the VAPS. In the first step and also in the next steps to come, we look at the VAPS as a product that gives you a variety of scheduling tools where you can kind of make very specific changes to the schedule following and supporting very specific scheduling situations. So it is not that you have this one magic button and if you press this, then everything flies around and you get a new schedule, but you can say, okay, now I want to make this change. I want to move it here a bit. I want to press here because I want to make a change to that production. And now I want to tweak it here a bit. So on the one hand, we give you much more control about what is happening in the schedule compared to this boom, this one button change all. But on the other hand, there is a little bit more work to do, because if you have to kind of operate more buttons, more instruments, then this does not have the immediate efficiency of one button. So I see a question to this. How does the visual screen look when there are hundreds of production orders for a single day? Then the visual screen looks like every visualization. You see a lot of these boxes. But I will come to this, so we will look at a bit more complex example in a couple of minutes. So just hang in here for a couple of minutes, and then we look at the plan that is not as empty as the one before. It does not have hundreds of production orders for a single day, but it has some more, and then we can look at how we actually can deal with more data. Okay, so please give me a couple of minutes to get back to this question. Let me finish the thought on the visual scale. I see next question coming. Is the initial result of planning work should already be finite planned with VAPS? No, it is not. And again, we will come to this in a minute. Actually, this is a good question because it brings the it spans the bridge to what is going to come. So we have the scheduling instrument that I spoke about before. And actually right now we have 4 types of scheduling instruments. The one is where we looked at already. This is the drag and drop, because with the drag and drop you do scheduling, and it focuses one operation, so one production order routing line. So as you saw before in the demo, you can just drag drag one of these boxes, move it around. And so you change the timing, you can change the resource, or you can change both. And it tells the software, I want to move the operation here. So this means this, as you saw, this can change the sequence on the machine. It has an impact on other machines. And more or less drag and drop is that you as a user make a decision about the priority of an operation. Because if you move it where another operation is, the other operation gets pushed out, and hence you tell the system, hey, this one that I drop here is more important. So we take into account the routing structure, the exception, as you saw before, if operations are pinned, and there are some more details, but I can share the slides afterwards. Then we have something that we call another tool that we call apply standard routing, and this means we can take a production order, and this is a production order that may have come to your system via the MRP planning worksheet. So you create your new planning worksheet, and this adds a lot of firm plan production orders to Business Central. Then in the VAPs, they would actually appear on what we call the standby resource, and we look at this in a minute, because those production orders would be planned by the planning worksheet, but not yet by the VAPs. And so we have a visual differentiation between what has been planned by the worksheet and what is planned by the VAPs. And so with apply standard routing, you can take a production order and add it to the schedule following the routing that you defined without impacting the schedule. So we would look for the first available place for all these operations in the given schedule. So we would add the production to the schedule without impacting the rest of the schedule. Then we have something that we call, and I see that there's a question. Let me just finish these thoughts on the 4 instruments that we have right now. And then before the demo, I look at the question, and then I see if I can answer them in the demo. Then we have a tool that we call apply alternative routing. This is pretty similar to what we have done before, but with the VAPs, we actually can define alternative resources. So what we can say is that here is my routing, but for that machine, those 2 other machines are allowed alternatives, and the one alternative is exactly the same machine, so it has the same runtime and the same setup time, but the other machine is a bit older, so it may be actually easier to set it up, but the machine is way slower, so it takes longer to get the things produced there. And when we say apply alternative routing, we look through all the allowed alternatives in the routing and then add the production order to the schedule at earliest by looking at all these alternatives without impacting the overall schedule. And then we have a 4th tool that we call scheduled successors, and this is really brute force because this accelerates a production order from that operation where you actually hit this control, and then it changes all the others. So it is really a tool that helps you to prioritize a production order. It helps you to push through a production order as fast as you can. And so with this, let's first answer the question or questions that came up. And let's see if I can. If we have a page in business, interesting question. If we have a page in Business Central or NAV where we schedule our job orders already with certain algorithm and logic, can the page be directly linked with VAPs, or it only works as per production orders details, runtime, and machine capacity only? So, Rashmi, we would look at how to integrate the VAPs with your proprietary or with your own vertical solution. So first, the VAPs is for Business Central. It does not run with NAV. It requires Business Central version 14 cumulative update 1. And then if you have your own algorithm, your own logic in your application, the VAPs actually might be the wrong product for you. And we could do another session where we look at what we call the developer toolbox that we have so that you can build your own visual scheduler that integrates with your own solution. So if you're interested in this, I will share my contact details at the end of the call. Then just drop me a note, because the idea of the VAPS is actually to bring own logic. So if we have a conflict with your logic and our VAPS logic, then there could be an option that you build your own visual scheduler based on a developer toolbox that we have that lets you, and that we use on our own to build our own products. Next question, drag and drop only for machines, not work center. I'm thinking on subcontractor nodes that I want to change the work center depending on work center load. Lovely question. I wish we would have talked before we built the product. So right now, we plan everything on machine center. After we had this, actually, we now have a customer where we have the VAPS live and they use the subcontracting work center. So the next thing that we do now that the VAPS and AppSource is kind of to support the standard business central subcontracting functionality. So right now, not at latest with the next version in May, we will have a full support for the business central subcontracting work centers. I bet that we will ship an intermediate version because we have this customer who uses this functionality and or uses business central subcontracting, and they wait for this functionality. So this is something we worked on. So now let's go back to business central. And let me switch the company so that we have some more data than in my VAPS playground. And it is still not hundreds of data, but at least a bit more. But if you have hundreds production orders a day, then it will definitively be a wise idea to kind of test the product, to have a look of how this looks like, because it makes a difference if you have very short operations or if there are longer operations. So if you have longer operations, then it's easier to visually differentiate them, but still. So this is now a plan with a little bit more data. What you definitively can do if you have a lot of data is now you see that I cannot oversee this schedule, and this is, I think this is 50 production orders with an average 5 operations or so. But if I, for example, would like to focus this red one, I can do the set focus mode, and now it makes no sense because it just focuses standby resources. But now I see only those work and machine centers that are needed for this red production order. So I have the capability on the fly to kind of to set a focus or to remove a focus. So to concentrate on a production order on the set of machines, or to see the overall picture. And we are definitively working on filtering capabilities here for the VAPS. So we are providing and we are working on tools to make it easier to handle a large amount of data. But in your case, with hundreds of production orders a day, I definitively would like to do a session with you and see, and maybe talk about a temporary test installation or whatever to kind of just see how this works and what we can do to support you there. But so now let's go back to the question. And now the other question was, is everything that we get from the planning worksheet, is this automatically added to the schedule? And I said no. So what you see is now we have my machine centers here. This is cutting 1 to cutting 3, drilling 1 to drilling 2, and so on and so forth. You see my work centers and you see the work center groups. And then you see something that is this yellow one. This is the standby resource. And the standby resource for us are those, we add this automatically to the schedule, and the standby resource contains all operations and all production orders that have been added by Business Central, but not yet added to the schedule by the scheduler with the VAPS. Because the planning worksheet just dumps the production orders to Business Central. And so now imagine that this red one has been dumped by the planning worksheet to Business Central. And now I'm, as the planner, need to take care where I want to place it. And this is where the scheduling tools come into effect. So now I can do what I did before. I can drag and drop it, right? And so everything that you see here on my drilling 1 and drilling 2 machines or on the cutting machines is something that I added to the schedule before. And let's quickly leave the simulation. I build the schedule and then I say publish. And when I say publish, then we write this into the Business Central tables. But again, this is something that the whole mechanism of simulations and publish, this is something I will talk about in 2 weeks, in 2 weeks time. So now let's go back to the scheduling instruments, and my planning worksheet dumped me this red one here. And I see, okay, I need to drill it, I need to mill it, and then I cut it, and then afterwards it's assemble and quality control. And now the scheduling instruments that I have, I can take this one as we did before. And where is my mouse cursor? And I can drop it to the schedule. So I can drop it here. And then if I drop it here, I say, okay, I want to start this on this Monday morning. I want to start this here on this Monday morning. And with me saying this, with me doing this drag and drop, I literally tell the system, this one is more important to me than the black one, the green one, the gray one, the blue one, the yellow one. So they all got pushed out. And all of their successors, so also the black successor here on that machine and on the other machines, everything got pushed out. So every sticker, every bar that you see on the schedule that has this gray dot actually now got changed by me taking this red one and moving this in between. So drag and drop is making a priority decision, and this impacts typically a lot of machines and a lot of work centers, a lot of operations. So drag and drop in a finite capacity scheduling system is a little bit of brute force or hardcore, right? So now let me undo this and say, okay, I have my routing. I defined my routing, and I actually don't want this brute force approach, but I would like to add this red one to the schedule without impacting all of this that I have here. And I would like to find the earliest available place within my routing where I can do this. And this is something that we call apply standard routing. And with this, I can schedule the production order according to the routing and find the earliest available place. And now I added this to the schedule without impacting the rest, and this is fine. But you see this line is now red. This is the required due date. This is the date that I committed to my client, and I'm now past the required due date. So because with the VAPs, we not only have the standard routing, but we have the capability, and I can show this in the webinar in 2 weeks, we have the capabilities to define alternative machine centers for every routing step. Let me quickly go into this so that I may overrun a minute or two, but I think it's worth mentioning. So double click production order, we go to the routing, and we see that as an enhancement coming through the VAPs, we have something that we call the alternate routing set. So I know that for drilling one is my standard machine as per my standard routing, but I know that there are alternatives, and they come from a setting that we have and some additional data that the VAPs allows to create. And I see, okay, actually it's not only drilling one, but drilling two is an allowed alternative, and it takes the exact same time to set it up and the exact same time to produce it. Whereas here, for example, for my third operation, my standard machine is cutting one, but I see cutting two is an allowed alternative. Cutting three is no alternative. It's not allowed for this production order. It takes the same time to set up the machine, but cutting two runs a little bit slower. So the expected end date is a little bit later. So now I have, as you see, I have these alternatives for all my routing steps. So now I can also say, hey, add this production order to the schedule, so schedule it without impacting the schedule, but find the earliest free spots within all allowed alternative machine centers. And if I do this, it hops to drilling two here, it goes to milling one, it goes to cutting one, and you see now I'm finishing actually in time. And now if I feel that this is, because this is the required due date, if I still feel, hey, let's look for ways that I can even push this through the shop faster than what I would always do. I first would, now that this is scheduled, set the focus so that I can really see what's happening on the impacted machines. So now I'm seeing only those machines that are impacted by this red or that are needed for this red production order. And then, for example, if I would say, okay, I'm okay with the situation here in drilling and the milling, but after milling, I want really to accelerate. Then we have another scheduling tool that we say, okay, from here on, I want to prioritize this production. I want to push it through my shop as fast as possible. And we call it scheduled successors. And if we apply scheduled successors, then we 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 move to the left all the successors after that without having any further time gap between the end of the predecessor and the start of the successor. So now you see this is actually kind of from here on the minimum lead time I can have on this red production order, and this is achieved by me saying scheduled successors. But again, this is a bit of brute force because now it changed priorities, it changed sequences on all those machines after milling one. So it changed the sequence of order on cutting one, it changed the sequence of order here, and it changed the sequence of order here. And with this, you see this this black one got a red dot. So this black one now turned late because I accelerated this red one. And so this is a bunch of scheduling tools that we currently offer as part of the VAPs, making use of this finite capacity scheduling mechanism that we have. And I see that there are some more questions. Is there any provision available to print the schedule on job card machine? No, right now there is no print functionality. And this may be something that could theoretically come, but definitely not this year, because printing a JavaScript Gantt chart in the browser is quite a bit of a challenge. So let's talk about what's next. So we are working on a couple of things. To some words on the roadmap. In general, the finite capacity scheduling is the backbone of the VAPs. So what we feel is that the variety of scheduling tools that are tied to bespoke scheduling challenges make finite capacity scaling both effective and efficient. So effective in terms of helping the user to achieve that target, and efficient in terms of helping the user to achieve their target faster. And hence we are really committed to add at least one new scheduling tool to each new version that we ship on the VAPs, which means as we are committed to ship a new version of the VAPs every quarter, we will at least add one new scheduling instrument every quarter to the VAPs. And so right now we work actually on two tools with a target release date in May. And this is something that we call fill gaps. So you saw that by the finite capacity scheduling, you can have some gaps on the machine. So we will add some automatism that you can fill these gaps again. And you saw now that we have the mechanism to work to move to schedule a production from standby to the schedule, either by applying the standard routing or the alternatives. And as of now, this is one production order by the other. But we work on a tool to kind of allow also bulk scheduling, so that you can say, okay, now I have these 10 production orders on my standby machines, and by this sequence of order, add them to the schedule. So this may be definitely something for the gentleman who earlier on asked about hundreds of production orders a day. This will make your life much more easy and much more efficient. And then last but not least, we are working also on something that we call sequence dependent setup times, so that we can define changeover times. For example, if you're in painting, if this goes from light to dark or from dark to light, then the changeover times are different. And we plan of having functionality that you can first add this information to Business Central, making use of item attributes and then item attribute dependent changeover times. And once this information is available, then we also make it available for scheduling. But here the target release date is later this year, so this will ship in the third quarter of this year as it is planned right now. And with this, I'm done with what I prepared. I see that there were more questions. So there's one question. Hello, Martin. To use finite capacity scaling functionality that you are presenting, is it mandatory to use machine centers, or is it also available when using with work centers? Right now, the VAPS is built in a way that it supports, or that it is based on machine centers. So right now, we would require that you work with machine centers and not work with work centers. Honestly, I heard this question now a couple of times, so I would, at least in our internal discussions here, will revisit the question if we should keep it to machine centers only or enhance it also to work centers. But as it is right now, and as the product is built right now, we would require machine centers. Then there's the question, why not always use best routing? Why now I have to choose standard or alternative routing? Yes, this is a good question. We wanted to give the users the choice because sometimes with the standard routing, we have customers that told us that in general they have this standard routing that they would like apply, and that they see these alternatives just as an alternative they want to make use of in critical situations to cope with real unexpected situations. And so we said that, okay, if we have both, we have the standard routing and we have the routing with the alternatives, let's give the choice to the users, and it will be just for you as a partner. You can discuss both options with your client and then you can consult them on what is best for them. But I think actually, with respect to this, it is better to have both options and then make a conscious decision what to use than to have just one option and don't have the other opportunity. Any plans to provide this tool for Dynamics 365 F&O? No plans to do this. Actually, when it comes to Dynamics 365 F&O, we significantly collaborate with a company called Extension from the Netherlands. They are friends of us and they are very close to us, and they use our technology for their product that is called visual planning. So when it comes to F&O, I think they have really compelling products. So if you're looking at visual scheduling for Dynamics 365 F&O, look at Extension. If you don't, so this is AX and then Tension. If you don't know these guys, drop me a note. I will get you in contact with them. Really nice people to work with, really clever, really good into F&O. Next question, will be VAPS on NAV 2018? No, the VAPS is for Business Central. It requires Business Central version 14 cumulative update 1, and there is no plan to make it available for NAV. It is a product for VAPS. Is it possible to get a view like VPS to have a work center view? Yeah, something we think of. Not sure if this will be May or Q3, but at some point of time we'll definitely have this. Most likely it will be just a view and nothing interactive, but we definitely think about this because obviously from what you see from the VPS, we have the capabilities to do so. How do you control product sequences with allergenes? Good question. Right now, not. This will be something that you then can do when we have the sequence-dependent setup times that we started to work on now, but that we expect to ship in the third quarter of this year. So today, this is only supported implicitly through color schemes, and I will talk about color schemes in the webinar in 2 weeks. So there is an implicit way to do this right now, and the explicit way to kind of do this will come with the release we ship in the third quarter with the sequence-dependent setup times. would it be so next question, would it be advised to use capacity constrained resources so that the plan always fits when they use the VAPs to find schedule? So my honest recommendation is switch off the finite capacity or the capacity constrained resources, because they just produce results that most of the customers do not understand. Just switch them off, dump the production orders through the planning worksheet to Business Central, and then have them work with the VAPs to really schedule them. This makes more sense, and then you publish it, and then you have a good schedule. And that's it for now. So if you don't have them, here are my contact details. Last but not least, thank you so much for your attention. It was really great to have you here today. There were a lot of cool questions, and actually we take some of the questions and ask my team to write a blog post about it, because there was some really substantially good stuff in there. If you have a question, you can at any time directly get in contact with me. So drop me an email or let's connect on LinkedIn. I have a Twitter account, but I'm not the most active Twitter person. I'm more on LinkedIn, on emails, on webinars, and now also on podcast. With this, I see there is something coming in. No question, but just a comment. So thank you very much, and you all, fingers crossed that you all stay safe and healthy, and then hopefully see you again in 2 weeks' time. Thanks. Have a good evening if you're in Europe, a good night if you're in Asia, and a great day if you're in the United States. So thanks. Bye-bye.